There's a lot of different video games that I played as a youth, but one game in particular on the Wii I sunk dozens of hours into, and it was that one Tanks mini game that came with Wii Play. You know, that game that came with the free Wii controller? I loved that game. I loved the self-contained levels and diverse layouts and enemy types, but it always left me wanting more. I felt like they could have made this into a truly tremendous standalone game. So I decided to develop my own Tanks game. But I ran into one major issue, and that's that the game looked like complete garbage. So let me talk to you about how I iterated on my game's design and aesthetic so that it didn't look like complete trash. Here's my first attempt at making the basics of the game. I made little tank characters, a super basic level, and assigned some color materials to the different objects. At this point I knew everything was placeholder, but I wanted to focus on the ability for the tanks to move, shoot, and ricochet bullets off of walls. Once that was working, I tried experimenting with different aesthetic styles. I changed up some colors, experimented with orthographic versus perspective cameras, made a circular platform level, added a dynamic revolving light source, and threw in a water shader. Basically at this point I was just throwing out a whole bunch of ideas and seeing what stuck. I wasn't sure what style I was aiming for, but I knew I wanted to concentrate on visuals first. I recently read this blog from the developers of Ooblets, and it defined how they are doing what they refer to as marketing first game development. In it, they emphasized two things that stood out to me. One was the importance of visuals. They make the point that you don't need to compete on graphical fidelity with AAA games, but you'll still need to compete for visual attention. Second, they state that developers need to share early and often. This means getting your game into a state where you can make GIFs and share it with people on social media. They actually made GIFs of the Ooblets game concept before they even started development. They wanted to see if their visuals and game concept would attract an audience before ever starting to build the actual game. This blog triggered a major mental shift for me. I wanted to focus on making a GIFable game, and that meant focusing on visual style. Now I've learned that good graphics doesn't always mean realistic. It just means cohesive style. All the different elements of your games should come together and form one part of a whole. Every little part of your world should be able to come together and look like they relate to each other and are part of the same family. And I'm not perfect at doing this, but at least it gave me a target to aim for. At this point, I started making some geometrically diverse levels. I started messing with Unity's terrain system and using that to build worlds that looked more appealing. I really liked this style for a while, but I soon realized that I needed more straight angles for the bullet ricochet mechanic to work properly. I wanted levels that were almost made to be puzzles. I wanted the player to ask, how can I stay behind cover and angle a shot to hit this enemy? So I tried raising up a flat platform up above the terrain, and that was working pretty well, but I still wasn't super satisfied with the style of the game. Eventually, I decided that I really liked the close quarters levels that acted almost as little vignettes of the world. I was enamored with how the original Zelda laid out its levels. Each transition was a marker to a new mini world where you had to take in a new environment, enemies, and points of interest in an instant. So I made a basic forest level closer to that design. This was by far the best iteration of the style I'd seen yet. I really liked the feel of this scale of level, and the visuals were interesting. I created a second map in the same style that was more of like a laboratory with a mechanical feel. To be honest, I thought I was done at this point. I thought I had something that was good enough and that I could create different worlds in the same vein of style. But then I came across some screenshots on Twitter that gave me new inspiration. This guy, Ian Zell, was working on a game that looked really cool. The world was really organic feeling, rounded edges and flat colors. It looked almost like the world was made out of clay. So I knew what had to be done. It was time to test my Blender skills. The basic ingredients for making 3D models are water, soap, and a basic cube. And it's as easy as that. That was stupid. I don't really know what I expected. It's so dumb. Alright. But actually, all I did was add a bevel to the basic cube in Blender, and look at the difference that that made in this level. So I swapped out the trees for these soft cubes of varying sizes, started messing with lighting and shadows, and tried adding in some water. I even added in new level transitions that more closely reflected the Zelda levels, where the next level would be loaded in dynamically and the whole world would move to the new area. And after some bug fixing, it started working eventually. It was at this point that I realized I needed to learn a little bit about lighting. I tried studying lights in real life, but that didn't really get me anywhere. So I decided to look up some Unity tutorials on how to properly bake lights, and I was really pleased with the results. I felt like I finally had a game look and feel that was good enough to create a Steam page for. So if you want to check that out, you can wishlist it now and get notified when I release the game. I'm sure I'll still be tweaking how the levels look going forward, but I'm pretty happy with where it's at now. I have a good looking desert world, polar world, forest world, lava world, and I've been adding some post-processing volumes that are making things look a lot better. I can now confidently say that my game does not look like absolute garbage. At this point, I feel like I have a really solid foundation of my game that I can now expand and create content for. In my next video, I'll talk about how I added different enemy types, breakable blocks, ice formation bullets, procedural character generation, which includes 3D models and different power-ups that they come with, trains, crate drops. I don't know if I already said crate drops, but there's crate drops. Yeah, I'll talk about some of that in the next video. So if you liked the video, drop a like and subscribe so that I know what kind of stuff you guys are into, and I'll see you guys in the next one.